Hi, this is another episode of the On.NET Show, and today we're going to be talking about VS Code and Omnisharp and C# support in VS Code. And we've got Dustin Campbell, who's a developer on our team.
Yeah.
So Dustin, what do you do for us?
I actually do a lot of things. I like to dabble and meddle in various things, so I work on I work with the Omnisharp community. I work on C# for Visual Studio Code and generally kind of cross-platform tooling experiences in Visual Studio. I also work with the C# language design team. I'm a member of that team and the VB language design team, so I'm kind of involved in a lot of spaces, kind of in that language tooling space.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how about we start? We've got VS Code, Omnisharp, C#. How do these things work together?
So VS Code is a excellent platform for kind of building up kind of your own tool chain of things you want to, having an editor experience that allows you to bring in all sorts of different kinds of tools, use different languages. And so it's got a really great extension platform. And so as part of kind of the initial release of Visual Studio Code, we built, as Microsoft, we built a C# extension for Visual Studio Code that really tries to provide kind of that core inner loop experience, a really high fidelity core inner loop experience. What I mean by that is like you want IntelliSense, you want some refactorings, you want final references and those sorts of kind of core editing features. And so we built that in C# for Visual Studio Code, but in order to do that, we needed some way to kind of have something on the side that actually did the language processing. See, Visual Studio Code is all written on top of Node.js. When you write an extension, you write it in TypeScript, which is great, but it's not great for writing, I don't want to write a whole new managed compiler or any of that kind of thing for C#.
That might take a while.
In TypeScript. So we have Roslyn, we have the C# compiler and all of the features and different layers of that entire API set that we can use to kind of build a language experience. And so we partnered up with the Omnisharp community. Omnisharp is an open source project that's driven by a number of people and has had a kind of a storied history of different folks that have been involved. And there are Omnisharp plugins that can use this little language server, right? So it basically is a little language server that sits on the client and it knows how to load projects, load solutions, even still load old .NET Core projects, and be able to then get all the references and source files and produce kind of IntelliSense. So you can query it and say, hey, give me the IntelliSense list that would appear here in this document. And you'll say, oh yeah, here are all the items that would show up and here's what they are. And there are plugins for that for Vim and Emacs that are pretty popular. We use it in C# for Visual Studio Code, and it's just a popular extension. There's a lot of people kind of involved in working on that, and we have a few people here at Microsoft that are working on that as well. So,
right. So when I'm in Visual Studio Code, and basically I've got some variable that's got some object in it, and I go to press dot, right? And as a user, I'm expecting the set of methods or properties or fields that are available on that. From the point of the Omnisharp plugin in VS Code, which you said was written in TypeScript, how much does it know at the point of that dot? Does it have any semantic knowledge of that?
It has no idea what it is.
Okay.
It has everything, any sort of that, those bits of information, they come from Omnisharp, the Omnisharp server. They're on the desktop.
And so what's the context that the client, which is the Omnisharp plugin in Visual Studio Code, sends to the Omnisharp server?
Okay. Well, first when the extension comes up and you've loaded on a particular workspace, a Visual Studio Code workspace, which is basically just a folder, right? It goes and it says, hey, where are all the solutions? What are all the projects? And Omnisharp initializes itself and loads all those up. So then when you press dot later on, you can we basically send a request saying, at this file, at this position, what would IntelliSense be? And that's already loaded up in Visual Studio, and up inside of Omnisharp. Right.
So it's almost like the opposite of what you would think, which is the source of truth is really in the server process. And you're just on the client in the editor. Certainly you own the ability to edit that document, but you're effectively just navigating the server view. Is that fair?
I mean, yeah, everything kind of lives inside the Omnisharp piece within an API layer from Roslyn called a workspace, right? And it's an overused term. There's clearly, a workspace I just mentioned in Visual Studio Code, which represents a root folder, which is kind of a different thing. A workspace, as we saw them in Roslyn, the API, that is just basically, it's the information needed for to populate a language service. So that's references and files and source files, those sort of things, the things you would pass to a C# compiler to get it to compile at the end. We're basically doing all of those processes that a compiler does inside of there. It's just we stop short of actually emitting it to disk. We just have all that symbol information is already there loaded in Roslyn inside of Omnisharp.
So how about we look at a very simple sample. So I'm going to use .NET Core since, as you know, I use that a lot.
I do know that.
Yes, you do know that. So I'm just going to create a new console app. And we'll just call it Dustin.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it's adorable. So we're going to go into that Dustin directory. And then what I do, and I think everyone does this, you just type code dot, which basically means open up VS Code.
On this folder, yeah?
Yeah, on this folder. And we've got some stuff here. So we're going to get rid of this welcome page. And so we have this dialog that came up, which says required assets to build and debug are missing from Dustin. It's actually funny.
That is adorable.
that was definitely not planned. Should I press not now or should I press yes?
I would say go ahead and press yes.
Okay.
And what that's going to do is it's going to generate the files needed in Visual Studio Code to kind of set up. Remember, because Visual Studio Code is all about lots of languages, lots of different sorts of experiences to build in here and support for different things. And so they have a whole system for defining tasks, build tasks, or test tasks, how to debug. And so that generates those files from your project for you automatically in C#.
Right.
So to get ready to go.
I think this line here is kind of the key line in this file. It basically says build is going to generate the program here. And this is kind of where you'll find it in order to launch it and debug with it.
Right, and even to get that information, it went out to Omnisharp to be able to say, okay, what is the output path of this actual project? Because Omnisharp ran MS Build internally as what we call a design time build, where we don't actually compile, to get some of that information to populate these fields. Okay. So you'd be stuck kind of typing yourself. But Omnisharp gives us a lot of value here.
Right, and I don't know if this is a problem so much anymore, but maybe like at some time in the past, I would do this, and depending which order I did it in, sometimes these fields wouldn't be correctly set, like this one, for example.
Yeah.
The target framework, and I'd have to type that manually.
Yeah, there were some issues there.
Yeah, does that still occur, or?
I don't think it occurs. Okay. It won't occur. So one of the things about our experience in C# or Visual Studio Code is that we try to be this, I was talking to you about earlier about this, we try to be this experience that kind of gets all the information, all the pieces it needs to build a language experience kind of on the side. Right? So of whatever it's installed near. So we don't include all the guts of Visual Studio to do this. Instead, if we're on a box that has Visual Studio or even the Visual Studio build tools, we'll try and use the MS Build from there in order to process these projects to get the information out that we need to populate a Roslyn workspace. On your box, it's probably we have a standalone version that's really bare bones. And then what it does is it says, oh, well, let me try and get the information from the .NET Core SDK that this project uses. Maybe you've got a global JSON as the default on the machine, and it will kind of line itself with that and use kind of the MS Build kind of bits from there. If you're running the mono MDK on your machine, it'll try and grab it from there, a more recent version, and then you can actually use it to edit Android and iOS apps and all this kind of. So it always tries to use whatever's around it to get the most. I guess best language experience. So in this case, it's going to grab it from your .NET Core SDK. Because it's on the side, sometimes it might not do the best job. And you should email me when that happens, Rich, and I will dig in and find the problem. So, but sometimes that's what happens, right? It's, oh, I didn't find this bit of information. It couldn't run MS Build properly, so the output path it gave you was a best guess.
Well, I guess also part of it is Omnisharp in VS Code clearly needs some additional software to run. And because you try and grab the software that's available, it presumably means A, you can start delivering an experience quicker, and B, you don't have to download as much stuff to the machine on the user's behalf. Right.
Go ahead and bring up, actually go to the View menu if you don't mind, and bring up the output. Output right there after the. And so if you click where it says tasks and that little drop down there, you'll find the Omnisharp log. This shows you what was going on to actually load this thing up. Where it found kind kind of the various bits on the machine. If you scroll up, you'll find actually that here are the instances of MS Build that it found on your machine. So it's actually running on Mono right now.
Okay, cool.
But Mono also supports the .NET Core SDK, and that's pulling that through and letting, so it's using the MS Build from Mono.
Very nice.
So.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so I think now let's just do a couple of things before we get to something more complicated.
Okay.
So here, you know, see, we're already getting IntelliSense. Yep. And you know, we can type another. Yep, type another write line. And one of the things I found super interesting and valuable. So I think everyone likes interpolated strings. And when I first started using this, I guess I'm going to create a variable here.
Sure.
You can see I'm super inventive.
You are.
Yeah, and so I thought.
PM code.
Yes, very much PM code. And I thought, you know. This part is probably not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
This actually does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
That does nothing, because there's nothing set.
You're in a static context.
Yeah, there's also that. So this worked, and then the program was going to run, and so I can actually set, let's actually show this part.
Yep.
Save it, and then we go here, and this is where we put debug, and everything works.
Right, and so one of the things we've done with C# for Visual Studio Code is we actually use the Visual Studio debugger in here, and then the debugger team is engaged in working on this along with us and has checked in all the code to make sure that we have a great debugging experience. And they're continually trying to improve it and tweak it, but yeah, you can see up there that in your locals window you've got the args showing up, and all that sort of thing. It's you know, it's surprisingly good.
Yeah,
it's really well done.
I've used it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go beyond this trivial example.
Sure.
And I wanted to, well, I might as well just close it. That's the other thing with, this is kind of where it's a little different than Visual Studio. If I don't really have the right workspace, what I like to do is I just go to the right workspace and I just open up VS Code again.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can do that.
Okay, so
it's you know, Visual. I'll pimp a little bit. I'll push the Visual Studio Code multi-root workspaces that they added, so that you can have workspaces where if you don't have to go to the top of some cone of a giant bunch of folders. You can pick the folders that you want to put into a Visual Studio Code workspace now,
okay.
Which is really, really nice.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what do we do here? So here we actually have 3 samples that are in this, actually 4 it would seem, here. And how do I switch? Like, so I want to work on this one.
Right. Looks like it's already working.
It does. So if I type, okay, so this one is already working.
Yeah, there are cases where you can get into where you have multiple projects and you want to be able to switch between them though.
And that's what this fire guy.
So down at the bottom right, this is something that's it's not as discoverable as we'd like. It tries to find places where you can where it'll search through and find all the things that you can add in here that you want to select. Now in this case, because you have so one of the things that ends up happening is it starts looking. It's got some real weird semantics. It looks for solution files first. If it doesn't find any solution files, it just adds folders, like the root folder in this case, and then it will. Then when Omnisharp is loaded on the root folder, it'll just go find all the C# projects under there and load them all up.
Oh,
and so this is working right now. It's going to work for everything that's in there. If you had a solution file or you have a couple of solution files, in that case, solution files are kind of like little views on multiple projects, right? And so, where you want to have, one set of projects and another set of projects. And so you can click that fire icon and it will show the different solutions that you can pick.
I see.
And also, we had some functionality in, back in the day, back when we had project.json in .NET Core 1,
I remember that.
We remember those days. And there was logic to go pick different project.json projects to centralize it on. But what we did with this was we said, let's just scavenge. If there are no solution files or anything, let's just scavenge the whole thing and find all the CS projects.
Then I have, let's just make sure I've got the right stuff. I've got a better one too.
Oh, you got a better one to demonstrate problems.
Yes. Let's go here. Just make sure we got the right stuff. Okay.
Let's see if this works.
Yeah, so this one is a bit better. This one has some samples in it. And this actually has solutions.
Yeah.
So I guess is it fair to say it's still loading? Is that what's?
Well, let's see. So Some cases, what it'll try and do is it'll try and find the extension will try and find solution files to try and load. Occasionally, it won't work out, and so what we'll do is we'll just try opening a C# file. That should get the switcher to show up, and that's what happened. So it did load the extension, but it didn't go, hey, I don't know what to load, and so it dropped that down by the fire. It says switch projects. You can pick the one you want.
Okay.
You can come in here, and it will remember when you open up that particular folder again, that particular workspace. It will remember the last solution you had open in that workspace. So the next time you open it, if you've picked one, it will pick that one. And if you need to go to a different one and edit that, you can select it down there. And these work across those multi-workspaces.
So what I was wanting to show here was, so this project happens to have some tests.
Okay.
And I'm not actually entirely sure why we're seeing this still.
Sure.
But I was wanting to show that you can actually run and debug tests.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I hope it works. I don't know. I mean, with that squiggle there, I'm not feeling really confident about it.
Yeah. So it actually did ask me. Actually, I don't think it restored this project for some reason.
Okay.
So actually, I guess if we do Control-Tick, is it?
I think that's right.
Yeah. So let's just do this one manually because for some reason that didn't work.
Sure. And if you do a .NET restore, it's going to Omnisharp doesn't the way we have it set up in C# for VS Code. It won't automatically restore your projects like you might get in VS. Partly because you'll start getting all sorts of problems because very often when you're using Visual Studio Code, you're using it in tandem with the command line or the terminal window, and you're constantly doing like git clean or or doing a build from the command line. That can really mess up and ask you to restore a lot. So let's just do a .NET restore down there.
I guess I've just got one file left to do that.
Okay. And we'll see. We'll see if it works. It might not work.
It might not.
I've seen it not work.
It would help if we just maybe switched back and forth.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It could.
Oh.
Or it could just we just need to wait for it to come back.
Okay. Now it's
so right now it's just unloaded itself and it's probably coming back up, and there you go. And we'll see if it actually resolves this. And
it looks like it.
Well, hover over it. Let's see. That looks
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Okay. So what I do here, so we can debug it. Actually, let's start with running a test.
Yeah.
So what this does is it runs this one test. Is that what it did?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In our latest release, I think we added, in the latest release of the extension, might be in beta right, actually didn't make the latest release. It's in beta right now if you wanted to go grab it at some point. But we added those same annotations on the class level. So if you want to run a class of tests.
Oh, I super love that, actually. And then if we want to debug test, this is actually my favorite. I have used this.
It's good because this was a lot of work.
Yes, I do use this. So it's loading up the debugger, and then it's stopped within the context of this test at that breakpoint. Yeah. I mean, you can do this obviously in.
There's a lot of process kind of maneuvering and ports open with the debugger to tell it when it's ready to go and all these kinds of things. There's a whole dance under the hood that makes that work that I'm very pleased that it just worked.
Yes, but I mean, I have been in the case where I'm trying to write some tests for this project and like a bunch of them are failing, not entirely sure why, and being able to debug in terms of a test is beyond useful.
It's part of the inner loop, right? I mean, that's just the core of normal sort of development today. I got a test, it's failing, I need to debug that test and see why it's failing. I need to step in and see what's going on, right? Okay,
so I got a couple more closing type questions, which is, when do new C# versions show up in Omnisharp?
C# language versions.
Yes, like 7.2 or 7.3 if we're going to have one of those.
They lag a little bit as far as support in C# for VS Code, mostly because the open source project, we try and wait for stable versions to show up on NuGet.org, as opposed to going to like our private, or like MyGet feeds where, who knows, it's the Wild West, right, of nightly builds. And so they try and hold to that. Sometimes though, there are issues that as we move forward moving forward in language versions is usually pretty easy. Sometimes there can be other things that make it more difficult to move forward. MS Build things that change. Sometimes updating Omnisharp to the latest and greatest stuff can be tricky. But typically we try and get those language versions as quickly as we can. Right now there's a PR up there right now. We're just trying to figure out why it's not working yet. To get the latest Roslyn packages that were just shipped in 15.6. Those don't have new language bits yet, but they have bug fixes to the language that we have, the compiler we have. So it's useful to get those anyways. So.
Right. So the goal is that at any one time, the Visual Studio experience and the VS Code experience should be the same.
Pretty close.
With respect to MS Build fixes, language features. Now, what about .NET Core? If I have installed .NET Core 2.1 Preview 1, for example, can I use that with?
Should work. Yeah. I mean, I think you are, aren't you? You probably are.
I probably am.
Yeah. What happens with .NET Core is, because we.
I am.
You in fact are.
Turns
so,
out.
ha ha ha. But what we do with .NET Core, because we try and be on the side of that, we try and say, okay, what .NET Core version is my project using, and we go and load up the bits out of that .NET Core SDK, right? And so then we're using those particular assemblies. Sometimes there can be differences, sometimes there can be problems, but it works out pretty well most of the time.
Right, so I could kind of be a bleeding edge developer and want all the latest stuff, and VS Code with Omnisharp should work for me. Or if I'm someone who prefers to be on pure stable, then it's also a good choice.
Yeah, we try and be resilient. I mean, we've had a number of customers over the years of C# or VS Code that are trying to be on the latest and greatest, and they're grabbing our latest things, and they're building core effects themselves, whatever, right? They're on the very latest and greatest.
And that's a party.
And they have issues, and we try and fix those issues so that try and fix them in such a way that we just remain resilient against that class of problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess in closing, so if you should just use VS Code. What do I?
C#. No, you don't have to spell it out.
Okay.
C#, like it's supposed to be. Yeah.
And in this particular case, it's the second one. Just install that. Obviously, I already have it installed.
Yep.
And
5 million. When we pass 5 million? That's fantastic. That makes me happy.
Yeah. Am I on the right version here, by the way? I'm on 1.14.
1.14 is the current released version.
Okay, so I'm good.
We are at like beta 2 of 1.15, which you can get from our repo. That's github.com/omnisharp/omnisharp-VS Code, and we have releases there that can be installed separately.
Right. So that's we should just open this and then.
Yeah.
So.
Omnisharp.
We definitely didn't prepare this.
No.
In Omnisharp/Omnisharp.
-VS Code.
I think I'm having stage fright with respect to my fingers.
Hey, you did it. No,
okay.
You're good.
Yeah, that's it.
Been no stage fright.
So
you should be confident from now on.
If I have troubles, I can file issues here.
Yeah, you can file issues here. If you click on our releases, you'll find that right down there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have used GitHub before.
Yep. You find that, okay, here's the latest betas and the things that we're doing in these
awesome.
to try and make things constantly better.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
This was a great look into VS Code. Looks super useful.
It is super useful. You know that. You use this. It is very useful.
I totally do.
It is excellent.
It actually has become my #1 editor.
Oh, great.
For sure. From both the pure text editor standpoint and the IDE standpoint.
Awesome.
So, awesome. Okay, well, this was another episode of On.NET. We looked at Omnisharp and C# in VS Code, and Dustin kind of took us through that. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.